Hello, BookTube, and welcome to Chatting Category Romance. This is a second channel that I have with Sarah at the Bookish Knitter, where we talk about category romances, the Harlequins and Mills and Boon that form a steady stream of income in the romance industry. And there are millions of them, of course. We could talk about category romances in 10 videos a day for the rest of the time. We would never even scratch the surface of how many have been written as a sign of how popular they are. But maybe we'll be talking about a certain kind of category romance more than some other kinds of category romance during the month of August. Because August is also the month of a great BookTube event called Garb August, created by Criminali, designed to celebrate trash. Now, if we're being fair, we will acknowledge that when a lot of people, a huge number of readers, think about trash reading, just in general, probably some of the first things that come to their mind are category romances. That reaction is not fair. As Sarah and I have said on this channel many, many times, we've said on our own channels many, many times, it's all a matter of execution. As I have said many, many times, there is no hierarchy of aesthetic creations. You can do a category romance really well or really poorly. Therefore, a category romance is a thing on a spectrum, just like a 1,000-page biography of Napoleon Bonaparte. A 1,000-page biography of Napoleon Bonaparte is not, in its nature, inherently superior, before you even know anything about it, to a category romance. There is no hierarchy. Nevertheless, Garb August is all in good fun, and Sarah and I are perfectly willing to admit. I mean, she's been reading these things forever, knows all the authors. I'm a latecomer, but very earnest in my appreciation of them, but we're perfectly happy to admit that most people think of these things as trash. So why not go with the flow for August? And especially since I think it's safe to say that there are categories. Category romances have many different stripes. There are all kinds of category romances. As Sarah always says, no matter what you like to read, no matter what genre or kind of book you like to read, you'll find something under the romance umbrella. And that's absolutely true for category romances as well. There are some that are Christianity infused. So not only is there no adult content, but there's frequent references to miracles or angels or whatnot. There are secular but sweet romances where, again, you're not going to get any sex scenes, but you're not going to get any intimation of sex scenes. Maybe a kiss at the end of the book, but that's all. Because some readers don't want that, and they want to know ahead of time that they're not going to get that. Some have a thriller storyline, a serial killer or a missing object of some kind, and with an element of romance simmering in the back of that story as a subplot. Others have an element of romance, of tense romance in the real world, in the contemporary world, with a strong thriller element simmering in the background, is depending on what kind of emphasis you want. And then others. Well, others are only concerned with smut. Or not only concerned with smut. Most of the ladies who write these books have a little bit too much self-respect, and also, I might point out, a little bit too much talent to write simple smut. Most of them aren't content to do that. They want to give you some snappy dialogue, a couple of good one-liners, and a couple of characters that you can care about. And because category romances cater to all those different kinds of readers, there have from time to time been categories designed to deliver sizzle. Trying to come up. I'm clearly going to run out of euphemisms for the month of August if I'm having trouble on the 1st of August. And for the month of August, here at Chatting Category Romances, I want to concentrate on one great line that did that concentrated on those things. One line that probably more than any other kind of category romance would be easiest to categorize as trash. And that is the Harlequin Blaze line, which, as the name signifies, got down to business very quickly. The stories get down to business very quickly. There is not the verbal badinage of Pride and Prejudice. No, not at all. And I'm going to inaugurate my month of Harlequin Blaze romances with this one. This is the Mighty Quinns, Brody. It's one very popular thing to do in category romances, but also in mainstream romances and any kind of romance, is to do spin-off stories. You write a story about a family of billionaires in Manhattan. There's the father, there's the absent mother, there's the oldest son who's heir to the financial empire. There's the second son who nobody seems to notice, a goody two-shoes who has a wild side. There's the youngest son who's a ne'er-do-well and a rake hell. There are the daughters. One will be conscientious, one will be far away from home. And the writer of the first book might be writing a first book about a love affair that ensnares the heir apparent to that financial empire. But all the other characters are going to get mentioned. And the writer is hoping that the series, that first book, will be popular enough with readers so that she can go back and tell the stories of every one of the people in that family. And that often does happen. Romance readers seem to have just a reflex when it comes to that sort of thing, myself included. I will read some standalone romance novel, not a category romance, but rather just a mainstream romance novel. And when I get to the end of the book, I'll immediately be thinking, well, that was very satisfying as a love story, but what about that cousin? Does he ever find love? And that is why this series was called The Mighty Quinns, after a pop song. But the title for this one is Brody, because we are going through in the sort of inset set of novels here, we're going to look at three brothers on the Quinn Ranch in Australia, Queensland, Australia, which is failing. The finances are stretched to the breaking point. The Quinns are in a long-standing rivalry with another family, and business isn't that great anyway. But we are looking at the Quinn brothers, brother by brother, and peck by peck, and ab by ab. And that is Brody. I'm perfectly happy to admit that all of us readers tend to judge books by cover, and I am also adamant in saying that there is no hierarchy of aesthetic creations. So you don't know, unless you're a snob, you cannot say that a category romance is going to be bad until you read it, and until you judge it according to its own yardsticks. It's no point in judging this according to 10-book epic science fiction. That is there's no point in doing that. That is nonsense. That is something that snobs do only to make themselves feel good. But that all having been said, it's tough to look at a book like this and think you're going to get Pushkin, and you're not. This starts off with our main character, Brody Quinn, in jail. He's in the drunk tank. He's in lockup in his little town in Australia. He apparently got too wild the night before at his favorite bar. They refused to be driven home, refused to give anybody a break, was taking swings at people, and he has been put in a cell until he dries out and calms down. And the book opens with him being addressed by the person in the next cell over, a young woman named Peyton, who's an American. He at one point has to ask her if she's an American. I would think that an American accent would be as grating to Australian ears as an Australian accent is to American ears. But she tells him that he was talking in his sleep. He was talking in his drunken stupor. And that he mentioned the name of his previous girlfriend, who he dumped him a while ago. Brody is at a crossroads in his life, which is why I think it becomes pretty clear in the course of the book that that's why he's spending all of his time and all of his precious money drinking to blackout at the local bar, because he's at a crossroads in his life. He was once upon a time a very famous and wealthy millionaire football player. And this is the world's football, not American football. So think agility instead of steroids. But, he was very promising until he ripped something or other and tore some part of his body or other. Why these people don't stick to reading, I don't know. But he can't make his living that way anymore, and his money is running out. He lived the high life when he was a star and didn't put anything aside for a rainy day. He's looking at a whole life of rainy days. He's only in his late 20s. And eventually he and Peyton share a little of what got them where they are. He doesn't tell her much about his past, but he learns a little about hers, which is that she's in jail because she is guilty of dining and dashing. A term that I hope none of you know. If you know it, I hope you've never done it, which is where, for one reason or another, you go to a restaurant, order a meal, get the meal, eat the meal, talk and laugh and have fun, and then leave without paying. In Peyton's case, it's not nefarious. It's that she had no money. She left an IOU with the restaurant, hoping that would be good enough. It was not good enough. She doesn't have any money at all. And in the course of the book, the more you read, the more you're going to realize how ironic that is, because she comes from money, a lot of money, more money than the Quinns have ever known. And she's forthright. The author here, Kate Hoffman, gives us a little echo of Pride and Prejudice, a little echo of Regency romances by making a point of telling us that the hero at the beginning initially does not think the heroine is attractive. I don't know, kind of, sort of. Quinn, merciful. I hate that gimmick in Regency romance. I absolutely hate it. And mercifully, Quinn gets over it almost immediately. His first impression is that, but his second impression, a second later, is that, yeah, there's a lot of attraction here. There's a lot of fascination, even though he's got kind of a chip on his shoulder about it. Especially he doesn't like that he mentioned his previous girlfriend's name. That seems to be a sore spot. It gets worse, especially later in the book when she becomes more of a plot point. And sooner or later, the sheriff shows up in the middle of their conversation, tells Brody, if you pay the fine, your brother's here to collect you. There are 3 Quinn brothers that are at the heart of this story. And it's the older, conscientious one who is there to bail out Brody and tell him over and over again, you're wasting your life. You're going down the tubes. What is all this behavior? You're not helping the family at all, and we're on the edge of dissolution. And it's weird, the white knighting that we get right at the beginning here, because Brody offers to pay Peyton's fines. And the sheriff says, well, actually, I was thinking of paying her fines myself and finding her a job, but just letting her stay here for a bit to cool things down. So everybody wants to help her. It turns out, the more you get into the book, that she needs less help than anybody. She is voluntarily fleeing from all the constraints of her previous life. And those constraints are pretty amazing. The portrait here that we get of her parents later on in the book is wonderfully done. But nevertheless, she agrees to go back to the ranch, to the station, with Brody and his brother. And you know how in most romances, in months other than August, that would lead to a romance in which the hero and the heroine gradually come to sort of circle around each other and wonder about each other and learn about each other, and then maybe to dodge out of the way of a rainstorm, or when some child breaks a leg or something like that, tragedy or exigency throws them together and suddenly they realize maybe they want to kiss. That's not a Blaze novel. That kind of pattern is not a Blaze novel. Brody barely has Peyton over the doorway before they're sweeping cutlery off the dining room table in order to bang away like a door and a screen door in a heavy breeze. It's only in a Harlequin Blaze novel. The idea is that the reader is going to want the fireworks pretty quick. You're going to want the sizzle pretty quick, and you're going to want that to maintain itself throughout the book. It's a weird kind of inversion in most normal romances, certainly in the archetypal romances that set the whole genre on its feet. The goal of the writer is to hold those things up in the air, is to not. That's going to be part of the payoff. Marriage, once upon a time, but then even when after the 60s, when it wasn't explicitly marriage, consummation was still going to be the payoff. Might not even happen in the book. It might be the next thing that happens after the last page. But in the Harlequin Blaze books and in a few other, the Harlequin Desire books, for instance, come to mind, no. In these books, that beach ball is not going to be kept in the air for very long. Instead, interestingly, you're going to be asked to start to care about these characters after they have taken a physiological inventory of each other. And you do in this book. Now, I have read one other Mighty Quinn novel, and I intend to read them all for Garbagus. The one other one that I had, this series goes on for a long time. It's not just Three Brothers. But the one other one that I read had a major problem. I was going to this one wondering, is it going to be the same thing? And that is, although I like the story, and I'm industriously taking notes during these sizzle scenes, trying to figure out why people read them or how to do them well, I never actually cared for the Quinn brother in that novel. And I have to say, in Brody, I didn't care for Brody either. I had no idea at the end of the book why Peyton would want anything to do with him. I also, maybe this is a knock against Kate Hoffman. I don't want to knock any of these authors. Garbaugust is a month of fun. And besides, I don't know how many of these authors Sarah knows. But it might be a knock against the author that not only did I not see why Peyton would spend any time with Brody once their pants were on, if Brody looks like this, I mean, and she looks beautiful too, then that part is no mystery to me. But why she would spend any time with him otherwise, why she would actually speak to him, I don't know. And I never did know that in the course of this book. I don't see his appeal as a person. Same thing with the one other Brody book that I read. The brothers Quinn, the Mighty Quinns, are not getting to me. But Peyton I loved as a character. Although, again, no knock to this author, but by the end of the book, I was thinking, I mean, Peyton's on the run from her life, from her own life, all aspects of it. The corseted future, the family fortune, the prearranged fiance, all that sort of stuff. And, by the end of the book, the more I learned about that life, the less I wondered why she was running from it. Why are you running from this at all? This doesn't sound so bad. Why would you go all the way to the back and beyond, which, if we're keeping score, is Queensland, Australia? Okay. Why would you go all the way there to get away from this? Most people, in a believably written novel, a normal character wouldn't go 10 blocks south to get away from the life you're describing, much less all the way to the other side of the world. I mean, there are inducements, but they only go so far. Anyway, although in Peyton's home in America, in her high-profile neighborhood in America, the only men who look like that are not interested in her, if you know what I mean. But anyway, I started Garbagus for category romances with a Blaze novel. I have a bunch of Blaze novels. I'm just going to go through them all. I don't know if I'll stay with the Mighty Quinns right away. I will read more of them in the course of this month. But I might get out of Australia and go somewhere else. One of the problems with that as a location is that a lot of Harlequin romances, you'd have to ask Sarah for the specifics on this, but a lot of American Harlequin romances are repurposed Mills and Boon romances, which all take place in some part of the sprawling United Kingdom. A lot of them take place in Australia. So I might not be able to get out of Australia for the month of August, and maybe that's fitting. I have never been to Australia. I've been everywhere else. I've never been to Australia. So for me, it's a fantasy land of Ayers Rock and dingoes and great white sharks off the Barrier Reef, and also rippling abs. So anyway, there's no way I would ordinarily now at this point in the video I would tell you whether or not my reading for today was a success. But the whole point of Garbagus is to avoid success as much as possible. The whole point of Garbagus is to read trash. So this certainly fit the bill. I was exhausted by the time I was done. And that is the ultimate doff of the hat to Kate Hoffman. So that is my book for today, The Mighty Quinns. This is Brody's installment. This is Brody's chance at love for The Mighty Quinns. And, no spoilers here for the ending, but Peyton's fortune comes in handy. But anyway, that's it for today. I will be overindulging in Blaze novels on this channel for the month of August. I hope you will join me with your fan ready. And I will see you then. Thank you, BookTube.